Venus shows up twice. She's at the bottom of one kite and at the top of the other. Hello. This is going to be your week of video for December 9th. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? This is G. You are watching Allastrology. There we go, December 9th. We do have a focus on Mercury. Mercury is still in Saggy. Mercury is still retrograding, but it moves really slow this week because it's beginning to slow down. This might actually be helpful only in the fact that it's slowing down and retrograding. Now, remember, this is Sagittarius, so this is also a Jupiter-ruled sign. So we have this really interesting thing while we have Mercury and Sagittarius, especially a retrograde. We got Jupiter on both sides of the chart because Jupiter up in the sky is sitting over here in Gemini, and Mercury rules this. So we got Mercury and Jupiter sitting over here. Right? Think of planets, Mercury and Jupiter sitting over because Mercury is always with Gemini. It never leaves. It's the ruler. So all those keywords for Mercury: news, information, data, the details, short distances, short journeys, learning, teaching, schools, the local community, local businesses, the markets, the stock market, the real estate market. Like all this is part of that. It's the merchant and the business. Okay. But then when you go over here, the bigger picture, kind of, right? Because it's not the details. Saggy doesn't like the details. It's Jupiter. It just sees the forest. It doesn't see what kind of trees are necessarily in that forest. However, with Mercury here and Mercury doing a retrograde, we have Mercury and Jupiter together, which means Mercury is going to emphasize and bring up and talk about and pull out the details, whether it's in a law document, whether it's in a ruling, there's going to be some details because that's what Mercury does. And it's Mercury going slow. And so when a planet goes really slow, it's keywords, it's energy, like the way it expresses your mind, the thinking more, communicating more, wanting to learn more, right? All this becomes more prominent. So the news cycle, right, expands. It kind of blows up. So likely we're hearing a lot about the justice system. Yeah, you see the sun is way ahead of Mercury, so our mind doesn't work too great when the sun's ahead of Mercury. Our minds work better when Mercury is ahead of the sun. But we do have Mercury at both sides of this chart, and it's a Mercury retrograde. So therefore, Mercury is actually a little bit stronger, a little on the stronger side this week. Now you see this interesting shape. You see the kite here, right? You see I'm first going to draw you the trine. You first have to have a trine in your chart to have a kite. Okay. So here's the trine, and it's a fire trine. Okay. So there's the trine. We've got at the beginning of this week, the moon at 2 degrees in Aries, and it's about to go to 3 degrees because the North Node sits. It's not a big mover. It's kind of slow. So this is 3 degrees, hold steady for this whole week. So we got something at 3 degrees this whole week. Then we also, as the moon moves through this day, and well, I should say the next 48 hours of this chart, the moon will go up in numbers and will still stay in fire. But at 8 degrees and at 9 degrees, those are important because they're also part of another grand fire trine in this chart. So we've got the lower degrees of Aries, and then we got 8 and 9 degrees of Aries. These two are very slow. Salacia, feminine energy, feminine goddess of the waters, the consort to Neptune, goddess of the water, the seashell. Okay. So just think of Neptune, but think female version. Confusion, prayer, sound, sensitivities, right? It's in Aries, so the body, the head specifically, but beliefs about my body, the judgments, the rulings, the freedom of my body, bodily autonomy, feminine energy, really key here. These are asteroids, feminine asteroids. They're prominent. They matter. And then we, of course, have Jupiter and Pluto midpoint, rulings, beliefs, freedoms on the line here. confident, that's Jupiter energy, usually optimistic, courageous, can exaggerate sometimes. Some would say it might even be a little hyperbolic, like just kind of taking something and blowing it out of proportion. Usually great storytellers to make a point, but in this day and age, sometimes, especially with social media, that can be dangerous. But Aries, it's all Aries energy and connected to Pluto, major changes on a very deep level. But you usually see what's been hidden and the abuses of power. That's usually what we have to see for the changes to occur. So, trying to control people, trying to control other people's bodies, for sure. Whether it's from their gender, how they identify, the color of their skin, their nationality, their race, whatever it may be, but trying to hold on and control people, limit their rights, kick down at them, because it's really feisty, angry energy. So that's strong for this week. And so that makes up this one corner of the trine. And of course, you saw me talk to you already about Mercury at 9 degrees, and Mercury only moves 3 degrees this week. So Mercury only goes from 9 to 6. So she holds steady with this fire trine between 9 and 6 degrees because she's slow. Now, we go to look at the other trine and we got Mars. Mars is in a retrograde this week. Yep. It was started retrograding last week. Actually, I think this retrograde started today's Monday, so you're looking at yesterday. I think the retrograde officially began the 5th of December, I want to say, or maybe it was the 4th. Wait a minute. What week we're on December 9th? No, the 6th of December. I'm sorry. So Mars is only a few days into its retrograde. I'm sorry. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of degrees, and I've got so many items on my chart every now and then I got to just make sure I know what I'm talking about and double check things. So Mars sits at this 6 the entire week. This doesn't move. So we have a very strong fire trine. Very strong. The symbol next to it is Vulcan or Vulcanus. There's Vulcan, there's Vulcanus. There's a couple of kind of Vulcan-y definitions. Usually it intensifies things because Vulcan is a forger of metal. There's pressure, there's fire, and there's reformulating something. Think about, a blacksmith, right? Think about, the fire, the anvil, and using an anvil and a hammer, and you're bending something, right? You're bending the will of something even. And well, it's next to the body. It's Mars. Mars is about my passions, what I will fight for. Freedom is huge. Freedom of what? Mars represents the body. So that's part of this kite because I have the light blue triangle. Now, the tip of that kite is connected here. You see Venus at the beginning of the week at 2. But that's not all. Look, right? We have a lot in Aquarius here. Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius is group energy, social services, humanitarian aid, volunteering, unions. This is altruistic energy. This is science. This is medicine. I'm inventing something to help humanity. It can be very rebellious. It can be authority figures. It can be people feeling very empowered and also wanting their freedom. So they kind of have to step away from the adults or whoever the ruler is. Or if you're lucky, you live in a place where you have someone who represents you instead of ruling over you, right? So these can be authoritarians because Pluto is back here. So it gives power to unions and groups of people, and that includes your friends, right? But it also gives power to individual power. Authoritarians, but also literally individual power, like alternative individual power, electricity, using wind and solar and capturing energy and storing it in batteries, like that's individual power. Of course, nuclear and new sorts of nuclear power. So that's Pluto at 0. Sirius is also how I feel nurtured. Typically food. So we think supply chain because Aquarius, mass transportation. Remember, inventions. That can be the shipping, right? The shipping industry, the railroad industry, mass transportation of goods and people. Okay. We have success at 2, Venus at 2, and Hercules at 8. Now, Venus will move this week, but she's not leaving. She's not leaving Aquarius energy. As this week moves on, Venus only gets to 9 degrees. So So we have that at the tip. This is the very tip. I'll just kind of go like this. Sorry if it makes, yeah, sorry. That's just the shape we got there. But that's the tip of the kite. Whenever we do videos and people ask me questions, yeah, sometimes I either they're skipping over or they're falling asleep. My fault if you're falling asleep, but knowing where the tip of the kite is, the top and most highest point of that kite is where the kite energy, all of the kite energy, all of the trine energy gets focused. So having a kite is a blessing because lots of folks can have trines and it's really scattered energy. Like it goes off on the Aries energy. It makes something easy to happen. It makes something easy to happen over there in Leo for them. It makes something easy to happen over there in Sagittarius. This is just this chart as an example. But when you have a point of focus 60 degrees away to the left and to the right, which then gives us this focal point at the top of the kite, all the energy of the trine gets focused there. Another way of looking at this is the Aries energy, the Leo energy, and the Sagittarius fire sign energies have a place to focus their energy, a channel of which to flow out to flow out from. So the fire energy will flow out at the point in Aquarius energy. So that's this week, but that's not all. That's not all. You see, there's another kite, another trine, and a focal point in this chart. And so, without going through all that stuff, the focal point on this one is Mars. Mars is at the opposite end. So, I have a black line drawn that's the opposition to the two focal points, the two high points of the opposing kites, which kind of gives us like this Solomon star. Gives you a Solomon star. That's what I call it. The nodes are part of each of these kites in a very intimate way, right? Because you told me, I showed you the north node. So this is the future of my freedom, the future of the freedom of my body, right? My individual rights, Aries energy. It's also Mars who carries a weapon. So people think of gun rights, right? People having the ability to carry a weapon, and it's my right to carry a weapon type of thing. 3 degrees is news, social media, news and social media. So the North Node in Aries is part of this particular kite, but the focal point where it will all be expressed is in group energy or authoritarians, because it can go either way, individual and civil liberties, social causes, social justice, organization of group energy. Aquarius energy also holds the power to be surprising. Okay. Now, with Venus here, for those of you who have Venus as your greater benefic in your chart, there can be surprises. Authority figure. Do I become the boss? Do I get a boss? Do I get recognition and acknowledgement of a group in some way, shape, or form? Right? Think of science and medicine. Think of space. Think of space and NASA and the space station, and give me more examples. But shocks and surprises is typically, but definitely money, because it's Venus and our values. So banking, we think of global banking, the big banks, right? We think of those big banks. And there's like a restructuring possibly, because there might be surprises. There might be. But people and money getting to the people, because remember, group energy and friends. So no doubt Congress is, should be at work. I know they like to take a siesta, before the holidays, but I believe they have a deadline. And I think it's the 15th or the 16th is their deadline to get another bill passed, keep the doors open, to keep the lights on, to keep the water running for the government. Plain and simple. This Venus, especially straight at the beginning of this week, is at the pinnacle of this kite, and Mars is at the opposite end of the kite, because remember, Mars is going backwards and Venus is going forward. Venus doesn't move too fast, and Mars moves even slower. So they're close enough. They stay within a few degrees of each other this entire week, just like Mercury, just like the North Node. Okay. Now, for the kite that Mars is at the pinnacle of, the South Node is part of that one. So this is a release. Ooh, a release. Well, people who are in Congress, because these are the people who are supposed to be debating. They're supposed to learn how to compromise, to create laws, and I should say to write the laws and to get those laws passed, get those bills turned into laws, and to vote. Now, this is news, but this is also talking. It's very strong for the negotiations energy because it's a negotiation degree where we're talking and we're communicating. It's number 3. It is the debate energy, right? It can also be very tricky now because we think Mercury when we think number 3. So you see how Mercury is really big in this chart this week. Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the really private planets this week are big. They're very big. There is going to be a moon event this week, so hold on, I'm going to get to that. Up until Sunday, Mars is at 6 degrees. On Sunday, Mars goes to 5. So that's that very strong kite energy, which takes a trine. It's a fire trine. Well, actually, the Mars one, let's go backwards. I'm sorry. I didn't dissect that one well enough for you. The Mars one, where Mars is at the pinnacle of right there, we got Mercury over, we got the South Node at 3, a release and a let go. This can be representatives. This can be lawyers, big time, significant relationships. We think divorce, right? Significant partnerships. Again, you don't have to be married to these people, but it's anybody who you have in your life that you would consider someone you compromise for. That's important. So many of us are not married, right? And we're like, well, I don't have a partner. I don't have a person that's, well, then who do you compromise for, or who are you the closest to? Now, sure, there might be some of you that have nobody. So maybe you have someone you consider a business partner. There's somebody, even like there's even times in my chart where I can see my mother, in a sense, is my partner because I try to do whatever I can and compromise my time for her. You follow? So it doesn't have to be the whole lovey-dovey partner thing or the downright business partner, but values and Venus ruling this. Venus rules Libra. Yeah. So it's Venus. We're talking money and partnerships and our values, and Mercury. And we're going to be hearing about it in the news, and let goes and releases, right? At the other side of this kite, we have at 5 degrees Jupiter and Uranus. So beliefs, religion, beliefs about the future. We think college education, college educators, people of the cloth, spirituality and religion. We think of the, oh, it kind of really angers me. We think of how the Biden administration had created the student loan forgiveness program, did a lot of good in the time that he was president. A lot of people can now function because they don't have those unbelievable student debt, illegal student debt, mind you, where their debt was greater than the amount than what it was originally taken out for. So just horrible lending practices that were allowed yeah, anyway, let's not get into that. But legal, number 9, is part of this. And that's Jupiter, beliefs, spirituality, college education, because we talked about values, right, with Venus over there. But then Uranus, an authority figure. So there's even been judges in certain states who put a pause or a stop on the federal student debt relief. Like, okay, you're right. Your president said that you don't have to pay this money back, but we're overruling it in this particular state. You have to pay your debt back. So with that said, 5 degrees is the Leo degree. This could be someone in charge. This can be children. This can be games. We think of the folks over on Capitol Hill, especially in the House of Representatives. I'm not saying politics isn't the master game of strategy. It is, no doubt. But childish games, super juvenile, like we're in high school. How many likes and tweets did I get, or whatever the hell, however many hearts, whatever it is, all about me. Like I'm here to just do a selfie. And so there's a lot of that when there should be serious debate going on. And so surprises and shocks possible. So that's part of this other. You see the blue, the solid one color blue kite in the chart. You see the trine. So the south node right there, part of it, Jupiter and Uranus, the shocks and surprise, lawyers, the justices, Supreme Court. And then at the bottom of it, remember that number 5? And remember the number over there, 3? Well, remember down here, we got Venus sitting at 2 in air. So this makes a grand air trine. Venus shows up twice. She's at the bottom of one kite and at the top of the other, and Mars and Venus are at opposition with both of these kites. So what this tells me, it's almost as if it's a possibility there could be a government shutdown. It's a 50-50 chance. In one of the other videos prior to a government shutdown, it was like, oh shit, there might be a government shutdown. But then it was like, oh, there's a lot of good energy here for negotiating and for something passing. And it happened. It worked. Because we have these two powerful kites with Venus and Mars in opposition, I'm looking at this like, holy shit. One of the saving graces, in a way, is that Mercury is really strong this week because she's retrograding and moving really slow. This gives people the ability to talk. Unfortunately, it's the talk in Sagittarius. And I say that it's super persuasive, right? This is very persuasive energy. It's showmanship. It's the performer. This can be the performer. Again, this is what kind of concerns me. You know, I started talking about how this can be the trickster energy, Mercury, right? So, with that said, when we get to the 15th of this week, which will be like, I think, Sunday and Monday, Mercury's actually going to go direct then. Okay. So we see that by that what that tells me is by Friday, by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, many times the people on Capitol Hill have to work overtime into the weekend. They always let it ride over. They, you know, they're in session all day, and it's almost like who has the physical stamina, who has the stamina to outsit who the longest and to stay awake and to function. It's almost like that's what goes on. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Mercury's really strong, stronger than usual because it's barely moving on those days. So with that said, that then tells me, because Venus and Mercury are sisters, and this Venus will go up in numbers as the week moves on. And it's not Venus working alone. As this week moves on, Ceres will go up in numbers. Ceres doesn't move real fast, okay? It's feminine energy. And it only goes to 3 degrees, but it's 3 degrees. And it's 3 degrees by like Sunday. And you heard me talk about the 3 degrees here. Right. So it's Ceres, how I feel nurtured within the South Node. And this is business partnerships and the lawyer and the scales of justice and equality and fairness, a release of some sort, or it can also just simply represent the way things used to be. It represents the past. And so maybe the ways of the past are now over. Maybe this extreme chart can be the other way around and be this extreme swing of, oh, those days are gone. No more shenanigans. No more, we're not letting, 6-year-olds in here any longer. All right. There's a separate video for the full moon. I will attach it below. Go watch it. The full moon happens on the 15th of December at 23 degrees. Full moon's in Gemini. Go watch the video to get the accurate details before my brain makes any more mush out of this. But Gemini is communication. And remember, at the opposite end is where the sun is at, the authority figure, and that is Sagittarius, and that's Jupiter. And that's how we wrap this up for this week, knowing that with all of the Sagittarius energy sitting here, and with all of the Gemini energy sitting here. We have Jupiter and Mercury in both those places. Jupiter and Mercury are both strong in Sag and Gemini. Networking, communication, and talking and business, beliefs, lawyer energy, the justice and the judicial system, the Supreme Court, and judges. And the whole thing is it kind of goes on the entire week. I gave you the degrees of where the planets are going to move to. So if you have objects in your chart at those degrees, you're kind of wanting to figure out, do you have anything mainly near this Mars at 6 in Leo? Do you have anything in Aquarius at the opposite end? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in Aquarius, right? And then the Gemini stuff, right? And the Sagittarius. Like this, these are like the main focus of this week. But of course, we can't forget about Aries, right? Because Mars rules Aries. So just stay focused. Fire and air is a big deal this week. A really big deal, because these two kites in this chart are kites made up of a grand fire trine and a grand air trine. So you see, it's huge. A grand fire trine topped by air, where the pinnacle is air. Other grand air trine, the other trine is air. The other trine is air, which I already went into details about. But at the top of that air trine, grand air trine, is fire. And action. We're taking action here. Okay. So 6 degrees, day-to-day routines. Think Virgo energy at 6 degrees. Jobs, projects, tasks, cleanliness. Oh my gosh, after hurricanes and all the massive flooding in Appalachia and Florida, all the flooding, Asheville, the devastation, the cleanup, the hygiene. Like, we don't have power, we don't have water. There can be a health crisis in a situation like that. So the 6 degrees is also how I can serve. How I can serve in a very mundane way. It's not flashy. It's those people who are like, we're going to where the devastation is. We're going to clean. I can't even afford to bring anything with me, but I got my body. I got 2 hands. I got 2 feet. I can clean. I can help to haul away debris, right? Just doing things that aren't real flashy. Just taking care of a neighbor, just making someone some food, just handing out a bottle of water, right? Knocking on doors, doing wellness checks. Whatever those people who are already there, who already have a routine established, whatever they tell you they need is the way to use this Virgo energy, okay? So Mars takes action, and let it be to lead in a very positive, optimistic, I'm holding out my hand to help lift you up, to help you stand up, to give you some hope type of energy. All right? So that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I appreciate your time. And as always, you take care. Bye-bye.